Welcome back to Area DMG. I'm your host, Wesley the Mile High Mouth, and for today's episode of Suki Nihon, we are looking at the Crunchyroll streaming of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney the animation. I'm not sure if that's what they're going to call it in the United States, although in Japan it's like Gyakuten Saipen something or other. Anyways, it's Ace Attorney. I almost want to kind of patch that up by saying like Ace Attorney Pet Detective. No, actually it's Ace Attorney, which is based on the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games for the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo 3DS, the Nintendo Wii U, the Nintendo Wii, the PC, the iPad, Google Play, and all sorts of stuff. Literally, this series is old as dirt, and it's good. So the first episode is called The First Turnabout. Well, let's see. First thing I want to mention about this series is that the animation is pretty cheap. It's full of errors. There are parts where like there's 6 fingers on characters. Characters are seriously off model. If characters where the sections where their faces just yeah, it's just the faces are too thin, the faces are too fat, the body types are just like, and I'm just like, And then I remember that this is an anime. This is actually the first real anime that we're actually reviewing for Suki Nihon. And that's something they do with anime. The broadcast version will be entirely off model, and then they go back in and they add more detail and they fix animation errors in post. In other words, on Blu-ray. And this will get a Blu-ray release in the United States at least. I mean, I expect this to get an English dub at some point. What we're reviewing is the sub that's on Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll is pretty good. Maybe we'll get them as a sponsor or something in the future and we'll start pitching some of their products. But for right now, I have a premium account with them. I like them. They're good. They have 2 separate subtitles that you can watch this with. There's a version which has the original Japanese names for the characters, because I don't really know those that well, and then a version that has the English names for the characters. So you have Inspector Gumshoe, Miles Edgeworth, Phoenix Wright, Maya, Winston Payne, that type of stuff. Yeah, gotta love the puns. And there's quite a few of these. Anyways, yeah, there's a bunch of animation errors. Pretty much anything out of Japan on broadcast will most likely have animation errors or censorship, and then will be uncensored and cleaned up when it gets to Blu-ray or home video. This happened with Puella Magi Madoka Magica. It happened with Stelvia, which is a really great series, but oh my gosh, when it was in broadcast, just terrible. They also fixed up Sailor Moon Crystal or whatnot. Yeah, we might review some of those at some point in time, but right now we're sticking to stuff that's more video game related. So yeah, this is being simulcast, and they're about 2 episodes in. The first episode, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of animation errors, but that's to be expected. Pretty much anything done by Rough Draft in Korea or anything done in Canada in Flash will have a lot of animation errors, just like anime. A lot of times it doesn't actually get fixed, and sometimes an animation error ends up becoming a major character in a show. If you look at like the whole My Little Pony thing with their Derpy Hooves character, where it's an animation error and then suddenly it got so popular people just made fan fiction about it. But let's get back to Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. The first episode, The First Turnabout. The animation, if you have bad animation, you can make up for it with good characters and good writing. And many shows do that. One thing I like about this so far, the music is okay. There's a little bit from the games. It's a little muted though. And there's sound effects straight from the games. For example, when they move to different areas, there's that little typewriter thing with the little information window that pops up via the video games. And that pretty much tells you if you're on the right track in the game. Yeah. So, is the anime on the right track? Well, the first episode is really rough. Ugh. It recounts the first case in the game in a simplified manner and leaves out a lot of the exaggerated expressions and humor that make the games amusing. A lot of Phoenix Wright is dependent on like the animations. From like the first time you meet Larry Butts in there, he's just like just facial animation that's all over the place. And the main characters are like just that. There's this fluidity to it that's missing from this first episode. And I'm like, But it's also the very first case in the very first game. If you played a demo of this series, that you probably played that first case. You know, the one with the thinker and the murder with the thinker statue that's actually a clock. Yeah, that one. At this point in time, that has been redone to death. It has literally we've been bludgeoned over the head with it too many times. I mean, if you're from Japan and you've played it on the Game Boy Advance, you've played it on the Game Boy Advance, you've played it on the Nintendo DS, you've played it on the Nintendo Wii, you've played it on an iPad, you've played it on PC, you've played it on other mobile phones, you've played it on the 3DS, and you've seen it in manga format and in live action format. It's the same story. And it's just like, ugh. Ace Attorney fans will be as sick of this story as, say, comic book fans are sick of hearing about the origin of Batman. Seriously, I expect the next movie from DC, Suicide Squad, to open with, "And Batman's parents were killed in a dark alley, making him sad and turning him into Batman. But that has nothing to do with the movie we're showing you now." I half expect that whole storyline to just somehow bleed into the Marvel universe. For no reason. Just be like, oh hey, Bruce Wayne's parents died. At this point we don't care. We really don't care. It should be dead. Like Uncle Ben. Or Batman's parents. Anywho, this first episode is rough. The voice acting is fine, and I expect to see a good dub when it comes out over here. And it just feels like it's going through the motions. So, let me illuminate this, because it's a fact about anime that really needs to be addressed. Very often, the first episode of an anime show is the worst episode of an anime show. It's terrible. Sometimes the first episode is just bait and switch, where they're like, here's one thing, it's something else. In fact, many of these series are just completely different from their opening sequences. There's one called Gairei Zero, where the first episode has no attachment to the rest of the series because every single character introduced and given some kind of character development in that first episode is dead by the end of that episode, and no one really talks about it for the rest of the series. Yeah. Or School Live. That's an interesting one. The first episode is awful. Every terrible trope about school moe anime is just thrown at you until the last 3 minutes of the show, where it's all moved to a side and you're like, oh wait, this is actually good. Just first episode of this is just criminally dull. I just felt like it was just by the numbers. It was terrible. I would find this guilty of just murdering a series. In fact, I was watching this episode and I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to review this for Tsuki Nihon, because this is kind of bland. It's bland. Just bleh. Just blah. Just, I didn't really want to vomit about it. It's just, if you've played the games, this will annoy the hell out of you. You'll be like, ugh, I don't like this. And it's true. I was like, ugh, that's why we waited. Well, I actually suggest going to watch it because they get that first thing out of the way. I don't know how many episodes this series is going to have, but they got that first case, because remember there's 5 cases in the first game, technically 4 cases, and then they added a case for the DS game to build story plot holes in the second game. Weird. Anyways, it was expected to be that way, just it felt like I was just watching someone play through the game and not any new information, nothing interesting about it. It was just like, ugh. I didn't really like that first episode. I would give it a D. I just didn't like it. It was terrible. And I was like, why am I even reviewing this thing? Well, because 1, we have to break into anime sometime, and 2, a lot of the stuff that we review is video game related. And this is coming out. I have a Crunchyroll account that I should be using more. Why not? I'm going to cover this one. So, are you suffering through this with me? Or have you seen the first episode? What are your thoughts on the first episode? Did you actually really, really love that first episode of the series? I mean, the opening and the ending is good. The animation is a bit rough, but I expect it. The music is okay. And I want more themes from the games. The sound effects are fine, the voice acting is fine, and for the most part, it's just competent, but not exceptional or interesting for this first episode. I'm going to stick with it though, because I have a feeling that, well, let's see, 1 down, 3 to go before the end of this first game, and if we're lucky, they'll get to some of the storylines with Pearl. That would be nice. I really want to see Pearl, Francisca. In a perfect world, this might have 26 episodes or so, and they'll get to Godot. I'm literally waiting for Godot. And Dahlia. Dahlia is one of the best characters in this series. Pearl is one of the best characters in those games. If you haven't checked out the Ace Attorney games, the Ace Attorney trilogy is perfect on the Nintendo 3DS, and you should totally pick it up. It goes on sale often with Capcom stuff, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. I mean, there were some times in like the second and third, and even the first game, where the story is so good, flat out tears were shed. It's so good. The Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney series is great. This anime series so far, not so. It seems very lackluster. But, what did you think of this episode? Have you seen it yet? You can see it for free on Crunchyroll. Seriously, they're simulcasting it, and you can see it for free. So why not go see it? Check it out, and let me know what you thought of it. Go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until the next episode comes out, or the next one of these videos comes out, you are now caught up.